Welcome to Cardium from RES Medical, the podcast that gets to the heart of travel healthcare and asks, what's your why? With each episode, we explore the topics and issues that impact healthcare professionals in the fields of nursing and allied health. Now, here are your hosts, Sunny and Matt.
Welcome to another episode of Cardium. If you're a subscriber, welcome back. And thank you for being part of the Cardium family. If you're a new listener, thanks for stopping by, and we hope you enjoyed the podcast. And we'd love for you to subscribe so you can enjoy future podcasts. And joining me today is my co-host, my main squeeze, outside of my husband, Matt Neal.
Hey, Sunny.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing really well, thank you.
Thanks. Well, I'm excited because this podcast talks about children and traveling with children. Mm-hmm. And you and I, we travel. We talked about vacations in the past.
We have, yep.
Little different realm, though. We're talking about traveling with children. And, when they're younger, it's a little bit different beast. I know as a mom, I think about it differently. I don't know about you. Like, I go all hardcore. I have like Tupperware, and I travel like snacks and travel games and blankets in the car, Dramamine for the kids that throw up, first aid kits for the boo-boo. I don't know. What's your kind of...
Yeah, I think we're thinking of the same things as we think about our vacations. The difference, I think, when you start talking about our guest today is our vacations are, a week, yes, give or take, and it's a full blitz for the vacation for the week, and then you're home and you've got all your supplies and for your boo-boos, as you'd mentioned. And
yeah.
It's different animal than looking at a contract assignment where you're going to be gone for months, maybe years with your kids.
Yes.
That's a totally different animal. And we love the vacations, but
yes,
there's a short-term end to that.
Yes.
Traveling long-term as a healthcare professional, that's a different animal.
Yes, it is. And I can't imagine. And so I'm really, really excited to get into this. And so our guest today is Natasha Stevens. So welcome, Natasha.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Well, we're excited to have you. Natasha Stevens is a registered nurse who has been practicing since 2012 and has traveled since 2016. Prior to her RN career, she spent 7 years as a CNA. Her specialties include step-down, telemetry, and med-surg, and she's currently on assignment in Waco, Texas. Natasha travels from assignment to assignment with her husband and 2 children. And thank you again for joining us, Natasha. And so I have to ask the mom question first. How old are your children?
My daughter Isabella is 12 and my son William is 9.
Oh, fun ages. And so when I think about that, I'm like, school ages. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So why travel when they're, in school?
Really? Why not? When we first started talking about the idea of traveling, it kind of goes back to early 2015, we decided to move across country. I'm originally from Iowa. My husband's from Omaha, Nebraska. So whenever we've done family vacations, it's really been like within driving distance. If you can make it there in a car, that's what you go and you see. So we got really excited about the possibility of going out to the West Coast. I've got some friends and family out there. I went out with my mother-in-law and my kiddos and just fell in love. Like, we went out to Portland. It's beautiful. It's green.
Yeah.
You smell the earth. It was just fabulous. So we decided to move across country. And although we loved living out there, it wasn't a success for us. First off, it's really expensive. And I didn't make the kind of money I thought I was going to be making as a staff nurse out there. And once we were out there, we were kind of stuck. If we had to save up for anything, it was really going to be plane tickets back home. Oh. Vacations were a thing of the past. And you just kind of fall into that rat race. And it wasn't for us. That's not what we wanted to do. That wasn't our goal. And I've come across lots and lots of nurses in my career, and I knew a lot of them, younger ones that were getting into traveling. And I kind of thought, well, what if we start looking into that? There's no rule that says you have to be a young new grad in order to travel.
Yeah.
But we decided to move back to Omaha because we were very unhappy. And that's actually when I kind of dipped my toe into travel nursing, so to speak. We didn't want the stress of trying to find a house and trying to find school for the kids and trying to find 2 jobs because my husband was working as well. That was just really overwhelming. And what I called a bunch of agencies, and I just took a local contract in Lincoln, Nebraska. So it was like an hour commute, which I was already doing in Portland, so that was no big deal. And that's when we really started dabbling in the idea of, hey, I think we can do this as a family. I love travel nursing. We love exploring. Let's look into it and see how we can make this a reality.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's very unconventional.
Very unconventional. And you made the decision when your kids were in school. So you guys, that in itself is a big challenge, but you're living the life. So when you think about all the challenges that are out there, not only what you had to decide with, but what you're dealing with today as far as challenges and having your kids with you, what are your biggest challenges, Natasha?
The biggest challenge was trying to figure it all out, really. Your kids have their community. We had friends and family there in Omaha. They had their friends. So it was trying to keep that community while being on the road. And then, of course, with kids, it's, well, how do they continue their education? And how do I make sure that they're prospering, that they're growing, and that we're not damaging our children by taking them on the road and living kind of unconventionally. But, I think that those are fears that you have as a parent in general.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you don't want to make a mistake. You don't want to mess up your kids.
Yeah.
So we did a lot of research before we pulled the trigger. I wanted to make sure that travel nursing was definitely a career path that I wanted and that would make me happy, because if mom ain't happy, nobody's happy.
Yeah.
But then we started researching, like, okay, if we're traveling, we're probably going to have to homeschool the kids, because it doesn't make sense to have them change schools every 3 months. I've met a few people who maybe get longer assignments and only change maybe every 6 months, so then kids are only changing schools, once a year, but that still didn't appeal to us. We wanted the consistency for the kids.
Sure.
Then the other aspect was trying to figure out, well, how are we as a family of 4 going to move from location to location? And that's where the wonderful world of YouTube really helped us out. We started researching just families who travel, and that's when the idea of the RV kind of popped into our heads. And like, okay, we can have a physical residence that we take from place to place. We can get the homeschool set up so that the kids have their education no matter where we go. And, we just go from there. So that was kind of our transition period. But it was probably 8 months or more of planning before we hit the road.
Isn't that interesting? 8 months of planning. You've got the resources of YouTube and probably a lot of different communities on YouTube that you need to do the research. I can only think of the research that we do when we're doing a week-long vacation.
Exactly.
When you decide to move with your family, that's a lot. That is not a small task. So 8 months before you decide to pull the trigger. That's great.
Yeah. And I think that's amazing too, because, you talked about the community that you have, social media, because I'm thinking about, I have much older kids, mine are college age. And so back then probably wouldn't have the resources or the network that you have now, being in the digital age. And so you can literally reach out and touch someone and have a network handy for you. So I think that is kind of a different world. Speaking about, going and taking your kids, I think of my childhood of being a military brat and picking up and moving. And it's still, you're moving a lot more often, but I think about having to pick up and change schools and friends and having to leave them. And growing up, it was just a thing you did. I might see them at a different base. Or a different country. I may not have. And it was just a way of life. It was just the way you did things. So how is that with your kids and having to adapt with friendships?
Initially, it was a bit of a learning curve. Our first assignment was in Fargo, North Dakota. We were probably 45 minutes away from town, so we were out in the country. And we got into the RV life. That's how we decided to travel as a family. And the RV park that we were staying at didn't have a lot of other kids aside from what we call the weekenders. And those are the folks who camp for fun, who come out on the weekend. So, they're able to make friends with kids and have somebody to play with on the weekends, but then those folks go home and they never see them again.
Yeah.
So that's when we really started reaching out into other resources. One of our biggest resources is just churches. We're a Christian family, and church was always a place for us to come together for community, to build friendships. So getting out and exploring the local churches was a really great way for the kids to have somebody that they can see every week when mom's not working.
Yeah.
And build some relationships. The other things that we started doing was also reaching out to other RV communities that travel with families. The first community we joined is one called Full-Time Families, and going to different RV rallies that these organizations hold. And our first rally was really overwhelming. It was like 70 families.
Oh my gosh.
So like nearly 300 people. It was crazy, lots of activities, but oh my gosh, my kids made some fabulous friends, some great relationships, and they can even keep in contact with those folks on like Facebook Messenger now, Facebook Kids.
I think that's amazing. That's amazing. And I think about how worldly your kids are and how probably more adjusted your kids are going to be than probably a lot of kids. And so I think that's admirable, and how, the effort, and I hope they appreciate the work that mom is doing. I hope they're hearing me.
Always the mom, Sonny. Right? Always the mom.
Yeah. We recently got involved with a new RV community called Road Life Project, and they have a specific group for kids called Digital Pen Pals, which takes like the social media aspect to a whole new level for children. They have their own Digital Pen Pal Club website that kids can go into. It's totally monitored. The adults who volunteer for that organization have been vetted and have had their background checks done, so it's a very safe environment. Cool. And I actually volunteer with Digital Pen Pals. And they have weekly activities, so they might have open chat, they might have craft time. A new one is their digital STEM. They have story time, all these different activities. But it's great because you see these kids come in and they're doing video interviews or video conferences with each other. So they can meet new kids that way, or they can see their friends, Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
And build those relationships, and then have activities to keep them engaged and, help them to learn and have fun and just be kids. So I kind of view it as like a PTA.
Yeah.
I was involved in my kids' PTA. I volunteered for that, and I had a lot of fun. And this way I'm reaching, kids who might be out in California or out in Florida or back home in Nebraska, just kids all throughout the country. And yeah, our children, they're meeting so many people from different backgrounds and different cultures and different beliefs, and they're finding that common ground and, finding that they can meet all of these people and have great relationships with them. So I feel like they're more cultured and more open-minded when it comes to that.
And that's awesome. And you're providing not only useful information for parents that travel with children, but also parents in general, in this world that can be really unsafe. So thank you for that. Great tips.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the world certainly is a smaller place for you guys. I think you're taking advantage of the technology around there to keep all the friends close. Natasha, you had mentioned earlier about your kids are obviously school age, so what you were going to do with their education and how that was going to look and how that was going to be conducted there with your small family of 4. Can you tell us a little bit about what you guys do for education? Obviously, you're homeschooling. Who does the educating? Who is the teacher, and how that works, and how the kids have thrived in that environment?
Yes. So our first couple of years out, we did a textbook-based program called My Father's World. One of the challenges with RV travel is internet connection. It's really taken us a while to kind of get that figured out. And, even though we have a solution, it's not always 100% reliable. So we decided to go with the textbooks just because it made sense. It was something that we could count on, and it was something that was easy. My husband primarily does a lot of the homeschooling because he's at home with the children, and we try and save my days off for, fun days to go out and explore, just to have family time and not really have those chores, those to-do list things that you have to do, every day. We were really, really concerned about that when we first started out. My husband loves his children, but he's not a kid person. So he did not think that he was going to be successful as their teacher. But he surprisingly has more patience with them than I do. So he's really come into his own, and he's really been a fantastic teacher. And he's a funny guy. He uses comedy a lot, and just the way he is. So he brings a different perspective where I'm more black and white. He's more of that gray area. So I think it's really important for the kids to have those different perspectives and to help them learn. But now that we've been on the road for a couple of years, we feel like we got the homeschool thing down. We feel like we're in a rhythm. We decided to change it up. And this year we're trying something called Easy Peasy. What it is it's a collaboration of homeschool resources that a mom had put together for her children and basically just put it out there on the internet for other folks to use. And she must be very organized because it's literally from like kindergarten to high school. But the kids have more autonomy. They can log in, they can do their modules at their own pace. It's got more fun, interactive games that they really enjoy and that also help them to learn. And then it kind of frees up us so that we can work on other things like our YouTube videos or, the honey-do list, or, it gives my husband some free time to maybe look into like some part-time work, if that's something that he wants to do. So it's got a little tweaks. We do have to do some supplementation like with math and maybe a little bit with science, but overall we're really satisfied with that. And that's the beauty of homeschooling is if you try something, you don't like it, you don't have to keep going with it. You just try something else.
Yeah.
I love that. I love the fact that you guys are taking advantage of the community within homeschooling, and you're making it work given the technology that you're surrounded with, and that you're always open to making sure your kids have the best that they can given your situation. It doesn't have to be a detriment to them. It can actually be an advantage. And it's nice that your husband is able to bring that perspective change that you're black and white. He's not. So what a great life. What a great story they'll be able to tell their own children.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And
definitely.
I love that you guys are learning so much about each other in this journey too, like what your strengths are, what you're finding out about each other and what your roles are, within this relationship. And that's amazing. And so it's kind of like a school of life for everyone.
Definitely. Because, at the end of the day, we are all that we have. Mm-hmm. Yes, we have folks out in our community, and yes, we have, folks via the digital age or the World Wide Web that we can reach out and connect with. But when it comes down to it, we have to rely on each other. And this has really helped us grow as individuals and grow stronger and grow closer as a family.
That's awesome. One of the things, moms and dads, parents, we have to have our time together, right, away from the kids. And so, and that can be hard when you're traveling and it's just you guys. So for those that are thinking about doing this in the future, or considering that right now, or maybe they are doing that right now and they're like, I don't know how to get us time. Well, how do you and your husband get your time away from the kids? What's a date night look like?
Oh, that's so challenging. We do a couple of things. The biggest opportunity we have is just when the kids go to bed. They go to bed. We have doors to my son's room. My daughter's in a loft. She's got a curtain. We have a door to our room. So, everybody has their own privacy, but they go to bed and we can just turn on a movie, turn on Netflix, and just relax and hang out together. The kids are getting older now, and they're getting a little bit more responsible. So we have done little mini excursions where we may have left them home for an hour or two. I'll interject. So long as we're in a park where we trust the individuals we're around.
Yeah.
Our last RV park we were at, the folks right next door were another traveling family, and we'd hung out together, we talked together, and we were both stationary. So we had that level of trust there. So we were able to reach out to them and say, hey, we're going to step out just in case the kids need anything. And then, of course, we have the Facebook Messenger with the kids, so we can message them and check in with them when we're not there. But we did like a little mini excursion when we were in Connecticut and went out to dinner for our anniversary. But honestly, most of the time, we just incorporate the kids for a date night. And then it's not a date night, it's a family date night, and we have fun that way. But we also know some other families that travel, that if they're in a campground or in an area where there's other families, they might reach out and say, hey, you got a teenager that wants to make some babysitting money? They'll do that. Or again, church or other community organizations, reaching out for those other reliable teenagers. They're great resources. Some folks have even used care.com and hired a babysitter that way. So there's ways of making it happen. You just have to be a little bit more clever.
Got it. That's good advice.
I think when some of the listeners that might be thinking about making this move with their family, or know somebody that's looking to make a move with their family, bring their family on the road, probably one of the obvious questions they have are, so what are the benefits that you see? You wake up every day and you say, I'm so glad that we made this decision of bringing our kids along with this journey. If you could tell our audience a little bit about the benefits of traveling with your children and getting them to experience, some of the adventure that traveling can be. It's not all easy. Obviously, there's a lot of work involved for you guys, but what are the benefits of traveling with your kids?
I think the biggest benefit is just being able to go different places and see new things. In the 2.5 years that we've been traveling, my children have seen more places and had more experiences than I had in my whole existence, my whole 37 years of life. So, and then you don't have to work to save up for vacation and have that vacation fund, because for us, each new assignment is like a vacation. It's a new place. It's something different to explore. You get to dive into the local life and meet the people and see how they live every single day, and try the different cuisines, and go out and see those people in their communities. And just the kids are learning not to put themselves into a box. They're really learning to open their horizons and take life by the horns. Like, the world is their oyster at this point, and we're really just kind of opening their eyes to that by being able to travel.
Yeah, I think that I think there's such a value there, such a different life.
Yeah.
And I think it just adds a whole new perspective. Your kids are, like Sunny said, going to be worldly.
Yeah, they definitely are. When you talk about your kids being with you and, they have a unique perspective. I think of like my dad and being military brat and, knowing what he was doing. So your kids are with you. They know that when you're picking up and leaving, it's because mom has an assignment and mom is being asked to do something, right? Mm-hmm. And mom is being asked to go to, hospital, or mom's, being asked to help somewhere. Do they realize, or do they see you as an everyday hero? Do they know that?
We were talking about this the other day in the car. My kids, were telling me they think it's cool to have a nurse as a mom, because I can go out and I can heal people and I can make people better. And, that's really something special, that they see that it's not just a job. I'm not just punching a clock. I'm not just earning a paycheck, but, I'm doing more and I'm helping my fellow man. And they see that. Yeah. They really do.
Yeah, because you're like Superman, except that your RV is the phone booth. You know what I mean?
Right?
That's hilarious. I love that.
because you're like jumping in and going to your next, destination, and your kids are right there with you, and they get to experience that. And I just think that's amazing. And kids, if you hear me, you've got a hero that you're traveling with every single day. So be proud of her.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Natasha, we could probably ask you a million questions, and you're a busy lady for sure. If you had to describe some of the tricks of the trade when it comes to making a decision to travel with your family, can you rattle off a few things that you said, boy, if I ever had to advise anybody, these are the things I would say, you've got to do this, 1 through 5 or 1 through 3 or whatever. No matter what, you've got to do this.
Planning is the big one. You can't just jump into it without having a plan. I think that's just part of adulthood, and stability and security in one's life. And, as a caretaker of someone that I'm responsible for, as my children, I want to make sure that we have everything planned out so that we're ready for the challenges on the road. Part of that plan is having a little security blanket. We have learned that things are going to go wrong, whether something breaks with our vehicle or something breaks on the RV, or knock on wood, I haven't had this happen yet, but if something goes wrong with the contract or it falls through, then you're stuck. So you have to have an emergency fund in your savings account before you venture off, just to be safe.
Yeah.
I think the second part is, definitely planning schooling. What are you going to do? How is that going to look like? There are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of homeschool resources online. Check out, I believe it's HLSDA. It's I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head.
We'll post that on our
there's
Facebook
homeschool
page
resource
too.
Okay. If you go online and you start researching Homeschool Coalition, there is a specific resource you can type in for each individual state that has the different regulations and laws for that state for homeschooling, because every state is different. For us, we looked into moving our domicile or our home state to Texas because they virtually have no homeschool laws, no hours you have to log in, nothing you have to turn in. They're really friendly as far as traveling with healthcare, and their vehicle registration process is very minimal, and they don't have state tax. So that was pretty easy for us, an easy decision. Again, planning how you want to experience this on the road. If you're not sure about travel nursing, what I always tell new families is take one contract. Take it in the summertime, right when the kids are out of school. Take a 13-week contract. That'll take up your summer. Go somewhere fun that you would never dream of going. Go to Alaska. Go to Hawaii. Go to Florida. Go somewhere fun. Do an Airbnb, whatever.
And make it a
and
true
just see
working
if you like
vacation.
travel nursing. See if you like traveling with your family. See if this is it for you. Don't jump into an RV. Don't jump into these big purchases unless you know for sure. That's definitely one I would recommend.
What are some of the situations that have gone wrong? Because stuff does happen, right? It's not always, rose-colored glasses. Everything's like beautiful and the butterflies are, flying around. But, stuff happens. So what are some of the situations that went wrong? We want to hear about that too. And then how do you get through that and
Sure.
stay positive?
I think one of the biggest situations we came across in our traveling was actually had to do with one of our assignments as far as my license. So I had put off changing my nursing license from the state of Nebraska to the state of Texas when I moved my domicile to that state. And it didn't catch up to me until about 9 months later when another state that was not compact was verifying my other states. And they're like, wait a minute, your address and your license don't match. So I had to put a rush on and finally crack down and move things. And that delayed the start of my next contract. So normally we take about 2 weeks off in between our contracts to sightsee or to get from point A to point B and relax. This one we had about a month.
Oh my gosh.
So it was a little pinch in the pocketbook. It was definitely stressful, but it worked out. we got the job. We were able to start later. And, all's well that ends well. We've also had lots of issues with our vehicle on the road. In particular, just coming in from Connecticut, we made a trip from Connecticut back to Iowa and Nebraska to see family before coming down to Waco, Texas. Before we started, we had a flat tire that the dealer had supposedly fixed when we had it in the shop a month ago. We took it in there, they fixed it free of charge, sent us on our way. Then the following day, or it was another day and a half, we had a Good Samaritan flag us down, tell us to pull over that same wheel that we had serviced. The lug nuts were wearing thin. We had 4 of them snap off in my husband's hand.
Wow.
Yeah. That was actually probably one of the most stressful days we've ever had traveling. It was on a Friday night. It was at like 4:30 in the afternoon. So things were about to close. We needed a tow for our truck. We needed a tow for the RV. And we were out in the middle of nowhere in Indiana. Luckily, we called 911 so we could talk to the sheriff's department. We were just going to park on the side of the road and figure it out in the morning. The sheriff said, wait a minute, let me call this guy I know. So a tow service, Robinson's Wreckers, outside of New Haven, Indiana.
That's a plug to Robinson's Record.
Hello,
Absolutely. He came and towed us with his personal vehicle. Well, he towed our RV with his personal vehicle to his wrecker service that also had an auto body shop. He let us stay there in his RV. He supplied us with power, so we at least had a safe place to stay for the night. He left us his vehicle so we could go into town and get food and get some water so we could wash our hands and flush our toilet. He was amazing. That's and then awesome. They towed our truck with the flatbed to their station as well. So what was an hour of getting nowhere on phone calls, getting nowhere with a tow service, one call to the local law enforcement, and they had us all fixed up. The gentleman put on 2 new wheel wells. It was a big chunk of money later, but we had the emergency fund. That's what it's for.
Yes.
And got us back on our way. But that wasn't the end of our woes. Then when we got to Iowa the following day, we had noticed that our trailer brakes weren't working.
Oh, gosh.
We were okay because it's the Midwest. We're not towing in the mountains. And we have an engine brake on our truck. So we're like, okay, we can get to where we need to go. Once we parked in Iowa, we looked back by our tires thinking, what's gone wrong? And we saw something called a shackle hanger that had busted off of our leaf spring that we didn't even know about. So like, oh, when did that happen? So as we're visiting my mom, we're calling around for shops in Little Fort Dodge, Iowa to try and replace that. Luckily, we found one. We limped it into town, and he was able to get that fixed. He said he'd found a wire that was frayed and spliced it, but we still had no trailer brakes.
Oh, my gosh.
We're like, okay, we're on a timeline. We got to go. So we went to Omaha so we could visit my husband's family, and then a check engine light comes on the truck.
Good grief.
Again, it was a wire issue. We took it into Woodhouse, and they were able to fix that, diagnose it, and fix it for us in a day. And then, luckily, leaving Omaha, getting to Texas, we had no more big issues. But it was just a comedy of errors, one thing after another.
So you're saying
in the
things
moment,
happen.
Yes. Yes. And I mean, in the moment, it's catastrophe. You go into fight or flight. Like, what is happening? Like, are we making the right decision? Like, this is insanity. But then, you get your bearings. You say a few prayers because honestly, without our Lord looking out for us, I don't know where we would be.
Yeah.
But, we get through it, and, we work together, and we try not to lose our cool with one another, and, we figure it out. And we always say this. No matter what has happened, whether it's been with nursing licenses or contracts or vehicle issues, it's all worked out in the end.
Yeah.
It always works out.
It
In
sounds like it
fact,
really
I have
has
one
for
more
guys.
for you. When we were leaving our contract last October in Minnesota, we were still scrambling to find a new contract. Now, we were getting a little picky at this point, and we wanted New Orleans, and we couldn't find a contract there. So the last day of my contract in October, we just hitched up and we headed south. We said, okay, I don't have a job yet, but it's getting cold in October. In fact, it was snowing the day we left.
Oh, geez.
And we said, we're just heading south. Like, something will come up. We'll get a job eventually, whether we go straight south, east, west, it doesn't matter. We're going to go south. Stopped and saw family, kept on going. I think it wasn't until we hit Oklahoma City that I finally got a call, got the job offer we were looking for.
Oh, geez.
And like I said, it worked out. It always works out. You just have to have some patience and a little faith, and it works in the end.
I think a little gumption too, because apparently that you have a lot of that.
Yeah, that couldn't hurt.
Yeah, exactly.
So Natasha, you guys have had a lot of adventures, and the travel life as a traveling healthcare professional, you do go through the times of where you're needing contracts and where is my next gig? Where am I going to go? What floor am I going to be working on? Which new group of people am I going to meet? I mean, that has a whole set of challenges itself. But on the flip side of that, when you start to think about all the memories you guys have made since you started traveling on the road, what are some of your most memorable, positive experiences you've had as a family through this travel adventure that you're on?
Yes. One of the big ones that always comes up whenever we have this conversation at home is venturing to the Black Hills, getting to see Mount Rushmore. I don't know, there is just something about being up in those mountains and being in those trees and being amongst that history. It's powerful. It's overwhelming. We got to experience that, as well as Crazy Horse.
Yeah.
My son, who's 9 years old, he once said that was his favorite experience that we've had traveling, because Crazy Horse is still under construction. He says he can't wait until he's older and he takes his kids there to see how far along construction has come, and to tell them, well, when I was your age, only this part was finished. And I just thought that was very profound, coming out of my 9-year-old child.
That's awesome.
That's great.
We've also been to the coast of North Carolina, out to the Outer Banks, and got to go to Kitty Hawk and see where the Wright brothers completed their first flight. And it's really cool because they have these big, giant stone markers at each spot of the individual flights.
Oh, wow.
So you could see how far the first plane went compared to the second and the third. And just put your feet on the ground and experience that history and kind of really feel what those brothers must have felt at that time. That was amazing. And probably number 3, I would say, was San Antonio, and experiencing the missions that were there. Of course, when you think of San Antonio, you think of the Alamo, but San Antonio actually has about 5 missions that were all kind of strung together, and that was kind of the beginnings of what later became San Antonio. But they have a really cool bike trail. So we decided to bike the entire mission trail, starting at the beginning and ending all the way at the end of the Alamo. So getting to, again, see that history and see how those individuals lived, and really understand how difficult it was to get from point A to point B back then, when they didn't have the technology. They didn't have, all of the creature comforts that we have. And getting to do that in a day and with the family. I mean,
and it's living history.
Memory.
It's stuff that they're going to remember. They're going to remember it better than a book,
Absolutely.
or a teacher in front of them making them like study it out of a textbook. They're actually experiencing it and having a kinesthetic, experience. And so, and that's what's going to imprint on them, and they're going to remember that so much more. And also because they're going to have that personal touch, because I did it with my family. And so when you add that plus the historical lesson on top of it, it just means so much more. That's
Definitely.
Those are great memories.
I
Those are great
know.
memories for you four, and the memories just keep on rolling.
Absolutely.
This is fantastic.
So kind of switching gears a little bit and talking about you as a traveler on the road, tell me a little bit about how you continue to grow your skills on the road as a traveler, as a nurse. And because you've been able to accomplish some amazing things that not every traveler can. So I want you to touch a little bit about that, or have, I should say.
I think the biggest thing for me has learned to be open. In the beginning, it's really hard to kind of let go of what you've been comfortable with. You're going to go to a facility and they're going to do it differently. That's just how it's going to be. And instead of like, oh, well, I'm used to them doing it like this at XYZ hospital, or really? Because at ABC we do it this way. Like, you just got to let it go and be like, okay, that's how y'all do it. Show me the way, and I will do it your way. So that really helps you kind of grow and learn that, yes, nursing is the same no matter where you go, but there's things that they do a little bit differently. I've also learned to kind of jump out of my comfort zone. I'm actually very shy-natured. I don't know if you can tell.
No.
But I've really learned to hop out of that shell and put myself out there, because that's the only way you're going to meet people and build those relationships. And it's the same with being a nurse. They don't know what you know. So you have to put yourself out there. And if you're on a unit that you've never been before, or if you're seeing procedures that you've never seen before, don't be afraid to take that patient on so that you can learn. Or, talk to your nurse buddies like, oh, you've got that cool procedure. Can I come in and check it out? And of course, the hospitals are great. They have fabulous resources. They have their policies and procedures and things like that online. So if you can find the time in your day, just hop online and see what they do, see how they do it. And like I said, just don't be afraid to ask. The worst they're going to say is no. No, you can't do this procedure. You haven't been checked off. Yeah.
And because you've continued your growth and learning, you don't like to brag, but you've been and I'm going to lead you down this flower type award. You've been a what?
Yes. As a traveler, I was nominated for a Daisy Award 3 times over.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations. That's amazing.
Thank you.
That is
Thank you.
amazing.
I kind of feel like it's almost cheating, though, because all 3 nominations were by different members of the same family for one particular patient. And, it's funny. I remember that patient like it was yesterday. She was an 84-year-old woman who had come in with end-stage congestive heart failure. She was originally from, I think this was in Minnesota. She was originally from the area, but had moved on to Washington she moved to Washington, but she would come back to Minnesota for the summers to visit her family. And that's what she was doing. She was visiting while she was there. And that's when she got really, really sick. And it came to the point where it was irreversible. And I think the hardest part for her was the fact that she was of sound mind.
Yeah.
She was all there, but her body was failing. And I just remember sitting down and talking with her and, kind of expressing that. Like, I know it's hard and I can't imagine what you're going through, but this is what's happening to your body. How do you want to live the rest of the time that you have? And she was so sweet. We shed some tears together at the bedside, and they decided to go to comfort care, but they had to wait for family to get in from Washington. And I remember there were so many. She was surrounded by so many people, was so, so loved. And her room was just plumb full. And I just explained everything step by step, what we were going to do, and that we were going to do everything we could to make her comfortable so she didn't feel any pain, so she wasn't scared. And sorry.
It's okay.
I just remember when they decided to withdraw all of the measures that were keeping her alive at that point. All of the family just gathered hands and they just started singing as we were turning all those things down. And that was, she'll remain with me until the day I die. She impacted me just as much as I impacted her and her family. And I'm very grateful that I had that experience. And I was able to have that as a traveler.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't a staff position. You know, it was out there exploring and meeting these new people all over the country. So it doesn't matter that, you know, you're not at your home base. You can still be recognized for the hard work that you do and the love and the compassion that you have for people.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Natasha. That's pretty touching.
Thank you.
We know you guys
Absolutely.
are busy, and we're towards the end of our podcast now. Before we let you go, Sunny and I want to thank you for taking the time today. But before we let you go, we like to ask all of our guests a really simple question. Natasha, what is your why?
It's why not, really. I love adventure. This world is just way too big. You just have to get out and you have to explore it. You know, there's friends out there I just have to meet. There's people out there I have to see, and there's things I have to do. And why not do it while I'm young and healthy, while my family is young and healthy, and while I have the time with my children before they grow and before they're gone. Let's just do it.
Amazing.
That's a great why. Well, thank you again for joining us. And hopefully after you guys get a few more adventures under your belt down the road, maybe we can have you back.
Yes.
Yeah, I would love that. It's been fun.
Yeah, and you make me want to go and get my kids and hop on a RV because I want to spend some time.
Well, come on out. We got a pull-out couch. You're welcome.
Okay, great. I'm on my way.
She doesn't travel light, Natasha. Be careful what you wish for.
I know. I do over back.
Well, thank you again. Folks, that's going to wrap up today's podcast. We'd love to hear from you, so please drop us a review. Let us know your thoughts on today's topic or anything else you'd like to discuss. Sunny, until next time.
Till next time, thank you so very much.
We'll see you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to Cardium from Aureus Medical with your hosts, Sunny and Matt. We're the podcast that gets to the heart of travel healthcare. To subscribe, access show notes, or to learn more, visit cardiumpodcast.com, CARDIUM podcast.com. Or wherever you're listening, be sure to rate us, review, and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time.